What's up, everybody? It's me, Carney, again. And today we're going to be bringing down one of my favorite songs of this year. This is Caution by The Killers. Here we go. Alright, so the first thing I noticed about this intro is that it's very Tears for Fears. And that's not a bad thing, that's actually a really good thing. I feel like more bands would be better if they tried to sound like Tears for Fears, because they're probably one of the most underrated bands of all time. And especially since there's so much synthy stuff still going on, I really don't understand why more bands don't try to tap into that vibe that they had. One other thing I noticed about this intro that is super cool and definitely makes this intro what it is that there is little pieces of ear candy just sprinkled everywhere throughout the entire thing. There's little synths, little guitars, and adding those little things keeps what could otherwise be a pretty stale intro, and it actually makes it seem like a build, like it's just sort of like exposition for this journey we're about to go on. And that brings me to the verse, which is the beginning of the journey, and it's actually probably one of my favorite like punches into a song that I've heard in a really long time. You just jump right into the action and it just sounds great. One thing my girlfriend pointed out to me is actually, I didn't notice this at first, I don't know how, but this chord progression is just the chord progression from Waiting on the World to Change by John Mayer. Not that that's like a problem, I mean like there's no such thing as like a completely unique chord progression anymore, but I just thought that was hilarious. There's a lot of interesting production choices they made for this verse. Number one being this bass is really trebly. Personally, I'm not entirely sure why they picked that other than it just sounded good to them. It's not like that's a classic thing for this type of song or anything like that. They just chose it. Personally, I'm always one of those people who I like my basses to sound just like very bassy. One of my favorite bass players is John Paul Jones, and his tones are just like, there's just really not that much treble, at least in the classic stuff. But the bass sounds great. It's just way more trebly than I thought it would have been. One thing I wanted to point out is that I think the vocals on this one are probably like on a very specific send track for the reverb.
Let me introduce you to the featherweight queen. She got Hollywood eyes, but you can't shoot what she's seen.
You probably heard of putting an effect on something, on a guitar or on the drums or on a vocal or something like that. If you put a reverb on a vocal, basically it means you're taking the vocal signal and putting it through that reverb. So the signal is just completely changed after that, unless you take the reverb off of it. So it is one thing, then it goes through a reverb and then it sounds different. With a send track, what happens is you have your dry vocal signal, but you also have another reverb signal and they go together. It's not like you're changing the dry vocal signal, you're just adding a reverby signal on top of it and they work together.
Her mama was a dancer and that's all that she knew.
Another thing I thought is just there's a lot of like background pads.
Cause when you live in the desert, it's what pretty girls do.
I can't tell if it's supposed to be sort of like I'm pretty sure it's a synth, but I don't know if it's supposed to be like sound like a vocal or if it's just supposed to sound like a synth because it's pretty in the back. But they just really do their job. Like it just makes the entire verse feel like a baseline level of energy the whole time, and that never dies out. Man, Brandon Flowers is really into being from Las Vegas and being from the desert. I've never seen someone get as much mileage out of their hometown other than Bruce Springsteen, which is who he's always trying to copy.
Cause when you live in the desert, it's what pretty girls do.
No disrespect, that's just very obviously what he's doing. Okay, into the chorus.
I'm throwing caution. What's it gonna be?
I love that first line, I'm throwing caution, and not saying to the wind. I love a good flip of a common phrase. I would say probably the most known example of that would just be like any Casey Musgrave song. She's so good at that. I mean, come on, a song called Space Cowboy, but the chorus is, you can have your space, comma, cowboy. Come on. And kind of like I just said, we also have the classic Bruce, I'm getting out of this terrible town, blah, blah, blah.
If I don't get out of this
didn't realize until this moment right now just how much Bruce Springsteen and like pop punk and emo bands have in common on that, like, I never want to be in this town again. Which is also funny because Bruce is always talking about how much he loves New Jersey and growing up in New Jersey. I'm getting really off topic here. I'm gonna go back to the song. One other thing I love about this chorus is that they added a more distorted guitar, and I think there's some other stuff on it too, but they only put it on the changes of the chords to really like punch, hey, this is the rhythm of the song. So it's not just like, I'm throwing caution, it's like, I'm throwing caution, what's it gonna be?
If I don't get out of this town, I just might be the one who finally burns it down.
So for this post-chorus, I just love, because I just feel like nobody does post-choruses anymore, and I think that this actually works great for this song. I know the tone of this like lead melody line for the chorus always reminded me of the Smiths song, Please, Please, Please Let Me Give Him What I Want. Did anyone else hear that? Is that just me? And again, that's not a bad thing. I love that sound. I just haven't heard it really in a lot of places at all, except for these two songs. Okay, one of the coolest things about this post-chorus though is that it feels very similar to the chorus and the verse, but not because it's the same chord progression. So the verse and chorus is always the same chord progression. It's exactly the same, like with the same changes, the same rhythm, it's every single time. But this post-chorus still kind of feels like it's the same, even though it's different chords. But the reason it feels that way is because the rhythm is exactly the same. Like the changes happen on the same beats. So I'll throw up the chords here. But in the verse, it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. On the post-chorus, it's different chords, but it's the same vibe. It's the same rhythm. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Also, this is a small thing, but I love that they just continued the commitment to having all the ear candy all over the song, but you can especially hear it at the end of this post-chorus going back into the verse.
Never had a diamond.
And I think that sort of does like double duty. I think it's sort of like letting you hear something different, but maybe it sounds like something that came earlier, so you know you're going back into the verse subconsciously. Or it also could just be that it's just there and they just wanted to fill up some space. So for verse 2, this is a very simple classic trick, but it works every single time. People have been doing it since they've been doing it for a while. It's basically just when you hit verse 2, just take out the guitars. Just let the bass do the work. It's nothing else has to change. You just take something away rather than try to add more.
Just black top, white trash, straight out of the news.
But another thing I love is that when they do eventually add one of the guitars back, they don't add the sort of primary guitar that's just sort of dinking around in the first verse.
Featherweight queen, she got Hollywood eyes, but you can't shoot what she's seen.
They do an acoustic.
Doesn't like birthdays, they remind her of why.
So it still sounds different, even though they're kind of building it back up, adding more instruments again, and it still feels new and different, even though a lot of it is basically, well, most of it's basically the same. So for chorus number 2, there are some harmonies in the back. They're very much in the back, but I think they add a lot personally.
Tonight the winds of change are coming over me.
They're super verbed out. It's really kind of like hard to make out what they're saying, but if you focus, you can hear that they're just doing harmonies on what Brandon Flowers is singing. And I think that's just sort of kind of going back to the Tears for Fears thing I said earlier, and kind of just going back to sort of the vibe of this song. There's just so many things that they kind of use as paths, and they all just mix them in together, and I think it works really well. So this is another good trick, is the post-chorus we had before and the end of this chorus, instead of being end of chorus, post-chorus, we are blending them together now.
I'm throwing caution. I'm throwing caution.
could be for a number of reasons. It could just be for like runtime. I know I do that a lot when I have a song and I'm just sort of like, well, I don't want it to be like 5 minutes long. Then I'll just like see little things like that where I can like combine things or like shorten one part or whatever. So it could be something as simple as that, or maybe that was how it was originally written and they thought it would be cool to extend it for the first one. There's a lot of interesting ways that that could have happened, but I just think it's cool to have just small variations like that can make a huge difference. So now we're in the bridge, and one thing I thought was super interesting is that this primary melodic thing that's not the vocals, this little bum bum bum.
'Cause it's some kind of sin to live your whole life.
So that's now the primary thing in the bridge. It's like the main instrumental thing that sort of grabs your ear. And it did happen before, but it's not like in a lot of songs where it's like pretty prominent and you just sort of just didn't focus on it. Like it's kind of buried, which I thought was really interesting.
I'm throwing caution.
But now that it is here, it's central to the bridge. This is a huge thing when it comes to production, is sort of like wanting things to feel new, but also familiar. And so that's why you see that in a lot of songs where there's just little things that is like in verse 1, and then it's like a little louder on verse 2, but then it's like the main thing on the bridge or the second chorus or something like that. And I think it works really well here. So for this ending solo, I actually didn't know this at first. I'm 99% sure, I'm pretty sure that's Lindsey Buckingham playing the solo, which is sick because he's awesome. But it's also funny because after I heard that they were like, we called in Lindsey and he came and we asked him to throw a solo on it, it actually makes so much more sense because that really does sound like his playing, but not even so much like his Fleetwood Mac playing. Kind of like, I don't know, just like late air Lindsey, but like out of the cradle Lindsey Buckingham. I could be completely talking out of my ass on that. It just sort of felt like that vibe to me. And so, as is classically done in any song that could be considered like a banger, like everything is converging at once at the end. There's so many parts that we heard before, and now they're all together, and it's just this giant crescendo to end. And I love it. I love when that happens. I think a lot of times people, you know, when they have a song, they sort of like try to, you know, complicate it a little bit at the end, and you don't have to. It's just sort of like the whole song is this giant like power, hit you in the face, make you want to get out of your hometown song. Like just give them what they want and just like push it and put it all out there at the end. The thing I found most interesting though is that the outro of this song was the bridge thing, which is actually like the least energetic thing. And I think it works because we already got the payoff of everything coming together. And I think if we hadn't had that, it probably would have been a little dissatisfying and anticlimactic. But just sort of like fading out on that, it just sort of feels like, not necessarily like a victory lap, but it kind of just feels like, it's like the end of Rocky when like he doesn't win, but like he's a winner in his heart. I don't even know what the hell I'm talking about half the time. I love this song. It's a great song by a great band. I love this song and I hope you love it too. So thanks for watching. This has been another song breakdown. I'm Carney. If you like this video, I guess just like, comment, subscribe. I'm probably gonna make more of these still, so if you liked it, then sub so you can see more of these. Anyway, I hope everybody's doing good, and I will catch you in the next one.